Welcome everyone to the Ren'ais'sance Ranch. My name is Tyson Dixon. This is my brother Preston Dixon. We are in the barn here at the ranch, and if you've been here, you recognize it. There's other, maybe fancier places we could have set up, but we wanted to set it up here. This is
a special place.
This is like our temple. This is the dojo, the temple of doom for your ego, if you will. Sort of the ego comes to die.
Yeah.
So stoked to be here and doing this. This isn't like me or like us to put a lot of our story blasted out there in public and things like that. And so so be patient with us. But we're excited to do this and let everybody know a little bit of our story of the process of recovery and the process of us being led to do what we do today, which is help run the ranch with a lot of other very amazing individuals. Mm-hmm. Most amazing, which are our brothers that come through here. We're continually amazed at the awesomeness of the quality and the caliber of men that come through here, and we consider it a sacred honor to be able to be in the positions that we're in, to give back like what was given to us. So this podcast is going to be geared towards the band of brothers, our alumni community. This is each week we're going to have a new alumni on that we're going to talk about a different step each week. Mm-hmm. So this will just be the intro podcast, kind of talking about our story and kind of setting up what the rest of the episodes might look like.
I think this first one's gonna be more so just your story, and so I've prepared a couple questions for Ty.
Wow.
To kind of keep your story rolling, because I was there for most of it.
Yeah. You could tell. Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna send it, dude. So that's kind of what you're saying. We're super stoked to do this, and each week, what I'm thinking, Ty, is we have one of our clinicians, maybe Dave or Russ, a lot of the times with one of our alumni, kind of going through each week a different step and just kind of have it be more entertaining, kind of talking about kind of what happened. Because there's a lot of funny parts, but then get serious about some of the emotional sides, some of those things that we learned, those light bulb, or those God moments where really change occurred, and then just kind of spread some hope. And that's really where this podcast or the kind of what we wanted this podcast to be, right, is to instill hope and share the stories, because I know me and Ty have talked about this. It's the stories is what we can relate to, is what helped us get sober in the beginning. Because I know with myself, I couldn't imagine myself being sober. I just couldn't imagine that.
For sure.
And so seeing other guys in early on in treatment, with the light in their eyes, smiling and laughing, just, picking up 30 days or 60 days and just see where these guys are at that point, when I was just day 2, day 3, just trying to get off team withdrawal.
For sure, dude.
It's a big deal. So that's kind of what we want to do, is share some of these stories from some of our recent, alumni who are just going through it and pulling out. For sure. Yeah, the stories are huge. The reality that people can change is astonishing, and is continually something that we get to see, we're blessed to see on a daily basis, but we never get used to it because of how amazing it is. And so these stories, they need to be heard. You guys got to hear these stories. We want to focus a lot of what we do too on recovery content, on specific recovery related tools and practical.
Yeah, and really make this a very solution oriented podcast for your enjoyment, but also for your emotional and spiritual upliftment. Mm-hmm. Because the ranch has done so much for us, continues to do so much for us, And we decided to do this podcast after our alumni meetings, because there's just a very rich energy of camaraderie, of brotherhood, of just a real thick spirit that we get, and especially for me in our alumni meeting. And so
For sure.
we want to carry that on after, and each week line it up and knock it down, and hopefully help this to improve your day, help you go another day clean and sober.
And if you're wondering, this is the Band of Brothers crest. And I tell you, there's probably some guys who we've never really talked about this crest. There's probably some alumni, right? We've seen this around. What is it? We got it hanging out in the front of the ranch. Maybe talk about what this crest is. Man.
Well, so this is the actual flag from out front, guys. Went and took it down. I think Richard or someone just like really latched it in there. It took me like 15 minutes.
I was wondering where you went.
I was about to get a machete and chop the thing down. No, but this came from outside. But this, we're blessed to carry the torch today from the original founders, the Brown brothers, H.R. Brown and Steve Brown. They were who were running the ranch when I came through, and H came up with the name. Ren'ais'sance, as we know, means a time of rebirth and renewal.
A new beginning.
And a whole new, rebirth, right? New beginning. So Ren'ais'sance is in and of itself is a powerful word. Ranch, it's not a ranch.
I was talking to Lane today, our admissions guy. He's like, dude, you got to get the horses off the website.
Yeah,
I even know how those got. But he's like,
those are our horses we had. They were here at one time.
Yeah, it's true. We did have horses,
and we're trying. I want to get some more horses too.
We had chickens, but
we did have chicken. So, and maybe at one time it was more ranchy.
Now we've got a putting green out there.
Yeah,
and,
we do.
We put a pickleball court.
But the new facility that we're working on opening in Idaho this fall, God willing, it will be a ranch. It'll be a ranch, and we're gonna do some cool stuff up there. But yeah, we thought about dropping the ranch, but over the years,
it's been around for years. We can't.
This is the
Ren'ais'sance
this
place.
What a Ren'ais'sance. Yeah, even I don't know. Ren'ais'sance place. That's funny. But so a huge part of being at the ranch is Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah.
So the ranch has a lot of different methods of healing and clinical and evidence-based elements. EMDR, one of the most effective proven elements in treating trauma, group psychotherapy, a lot of different things. It's a lot of stuff, but the heart of what we do is surrounded within the 12 steps. And this is the Alcoholics Anonymous logo right here. These three splotches here, if you will, represent the three indispensables of honesty, willingness, and open-mindedness. And then, so this right here is the original Ren'ais'sance Ranch logo that has a lot of symbolism. The owner, Father, Son, the Holy Ghost, honesty, open, willingness. It's got 12 pillars from the sun here, symbolizing the 12 steps. And then we have, balance down in the bottom left corner. So, just one of our logos. Brian Heaton was I would say probably, he's the primary author of this logo. I tweaked it a little bit, but Brian did most of putting that together. You'll see him on here.
Dude, all the good ideas come from Brian.
It's true. Yeah, Brian.
If it's a good idea, it's I wonder that kid, probably Brian.
Absolutely. Yeah. Brian's full of good ideas. Yeah, but so, my story, our story, right? I don't know how far back we want to go. Like we were raised in a good family, in a good home, and really in Draper, Utah. And good LDS family. Press and I, we had personality of kind of against the grain, rebel kind of mentality. Like if we were told to not do something, it just made us want to do it. If we didn't understand why, so things like drugs and sex, that it was just it's bad, and I don't think we really understood, this really why. It was.
Yeah, we grew up in kind of a. I think so. Chris Grove's kind of the matriarch of the ranch.
For sure.
When Ty started going through the program, I remember my dad telling me, he's like, "Do you know what Chris called us?" He's like, she said our family is emotionally constipated.
Emotionally dishonest. Yeah.
Emotionally
constipated.
Yeah. And so.
Yeah.
And and that's when I went through treatment and you as well. I think we started to realize that we didn't really talk about our emotions growing up.
Right.
We kind of had to put on that face, which is pretty traditional in the culture here in Utah, at least, of putting on the face is everything's happy and you don't really talk about the problems. It's you kind of put on this persona of perfectionism, that everything's okay, and it's kind of a subculture here, and so when we mess up like we inevitably do or did, like I think for me it was doing stuff with girls, having a girlfriend and losing my virginity when I was 16. I thought I was going to hell, It was the way we grew up, and what little testimony I had, I began to justify and rationalize, is there really a God? Well, if there really was, I'm going to hell, so there must not be, because God would.
For sure.
Yeah, and then you're just in a shameful place.
Yeah,
and on a subconscious level, you kind of get the efforts and then stacked up with, at least with my story, is didn't make the soccer team, and a lot of my friends went to play soccer, and I must not be good enough, and start developing or realizing more of those emotions. I just don't measure up, and again, it's like at the subconscious level, and then you start to develop these masks of, that really comes from insecurity, but it's like this false ego. Your ego wants to protect you, and so I had this alter ego going on because I did a lot of things good, and
we played two different parts. Like we were party people in front of our friends, and we were Peter Priesthood in front of our parents. And
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Did you ever feel like that you had a peer pressure element though, like to fit in? Was that ever
for sure
a big thing for you? Because I know
in both realms. I mean, around the church friends and at school.
Well, like as far as like, because a lot of things people are like, well, why did you get into it, right? Like,
for sure.
For me, I was curious, and I saw the kids, the cool kids doing it, and I wanted more than anything to be accepted,
to fit in,
to be
for
cool,
sure.
Yeah. And me and you we tried drugs together at the same time, and talked each other into first try, and a bunch of other stupid stuff, for sure. But yeah, like
I think time-wise for the listeners chronologically, I mean, we grew up like a normal family. Awesome. I mean, really awesome. I mean, Dad was a workaholic, but he loved us. He came from, what do you call a split home. We had a stepdad. His parents got divorced. Grandpa got divorced when Dad was young, and didn't have the best examples of father figures. His dad's dad was an alcoholic, and so there's some generational kind of ways that
Well, his mom was his biggest like support, and she died. She died right after Mom and Dad were married. Could you imagine not having mom?
Yeah.
Especially after, like in your early 20s and moving on. So I mean, I don't know, but Dad had a rough life. Mom has had an interesting. I mean, our grandpa was in the military, so she lived all over the places, and I think got really cultured and understanding of a lot of things. And so mom was our hyper enabler, and we were her little boys, and still are, and she would do anything for us. And so it really caused, when we were going through our addiction and different things, when we were starting off, really caused we didn't know it at the time, but there was a serious chasm in their relationship of Dad wanting to be the tough love mentality,
right.
you know, kids are to be seen but not heard,
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff, right? Which was like a lot of the emotional constipation, which is pretty common in our society, and which creates unhealthy family systems,
Right.
and so. But yeah, we, you know, for purposes of the story, we might not want to unpack too much. As in later episodes, I'm sure that we will start to unpack some of these issues, understanding them, and then the ways and how we can get over them, and the solutions to overcome them, and things that we've learned.
Right.
But I think it's good to give the listeners, viewers, whatever, some context.
And the reality is, I mean, look, we're really no different than most families, right? I mean, every family system has different roles that people play, and it's pretty similar. That's what we've noticed. And so as we go through these different episodes and have different guys on and they're sharing their stories, there's a lot that we're gonna be able to relate to and talk about. You know, this can relate. But where we're at today is, you know, we've both been in recovery, you know, since 2006, right? And our parents teach classes here at the ranch.
Yeah.
You know, they've been missionaries in the church. They've been teaching out of the prisons. You know, our whole family's kind of been involved in recovery for a while, and you know, I know you feel this way. We're extremely blessed to have parents that when we got in recovery, that they got in recovery. You know, and they're extremely passionate about it. And in fact, they have a podcast, Family Addiction Recovery Podcast, and we're on there telling our story in episode 1 on their podcast. So if you want to see more of our story, you know, it's there as well.
And that one's geared more to the families, the moms,
Right.
the wives, the you know, the families of the addicts. Where we're going to gear this toward the addicts and alcoholics themselves.
Right.
You know, so. But yeah, we set out really to try every drug I think there was, right? I mean, we're like, we're gonna go ahead and just
super curious,
do everything that we can. This is cool, this is fun, and you know, it sucked us in, and like a lot of that shame set in, and it started to set in thicker and thicker and more, and you know, I remember. Right, like when you got in trouble, that overwhelming sense of like guilt and shame that you had, like sitting in front of mom and dad, right? And dad's like, how can you do this to our family? How can you do this to me? You know, he's trying to motivate, trying to help us through it the best way that he can.
Yeah.
But it's just driving like emotional pain.
Right.
And we didn't learn any of this until we came through the ranch, right? But I mean, I was, you know, so many of those experiences that like I had no idea why drugs and alcohol worked for me so well until I understood, you know, these elements of you know, what causes the emotional pain, what are the causes and conditions, because drugs and alcohol, that becomes our solution.
That kind of leads me to one of the questions I thought about to ask you, bro, like with your story, right? And we've talked about this, it's been a while, but as we've learned more in recovery and have had so many times reflect on our own personal journey through other, you know, sitting in meetings after meetings and just reflecting. And so we know that, you know, the oxys that we did, the alcohol, the weed, all that we did, right, was just a symptom of the real problem, right? So when you first started using heroin, right? I remember seeing this really big change in you. Like you just kind of went crazy a little bit, you know. And at the same time, you kind of seemed more free. Like you weren't so stressed out. Like I could tell you're sick and you're going down a bad path, but you're getting relief. I remember seeing that. Like, okay, well, he's not so, you know, like negative unless you went high. You know, like you just seemed free from the very beginning, right? As time went on, it was the complete opposite.
For sure.
But you know, I remember when I started using, all my anxieties went away. I felt that, you know, and you know, and then it diminished. I did another harder drug, or I used more to get the same effect, you know. And but for you, man, like what was it that you feel like your prefrontal cortex was getting numbed out, so you felt good enough, you felt capable, you felt, all those type of emotions that we feel when we use or don't feel. What were those things that was numbing out that you weren't feeling anymore that you've been able to work through in your recovery?
Well, a few different things go on in the brain is, we've learned when a person uses drugs and alcohol, and what kind of can create a drug addict, you need both of the elements of the biological components and the environmental, so nature and nurture, right? So the biological components are our great grandfather was an alcoholic, right? So it's in our blood. So when we use drugs and alcohol, it was like from the amygdala standpoint, which associates, it's responsible for our survival. It's the most primitive part of our brain that it doesn't think or rationalize, right? It just if it feels good, send it,
right?
And so the amygdala was that fired up, and then the environmental side, it was a lot of the stuff we were talking about as far as not measuring up, the feelings of shame. And so I didn't understand that I was having those uncomfortable feelings before using drugs and alcohol. I had no idea that, I didn't understand feelings. Feelings, as we've learned, is like learning a different language. When you learn to understand and what your feelings are and to be able to identify them and label them, then you can clearly see what you're dealing with, and then you can make progress when you understand the feelings. I think I had no context to, I'm irritable, restless, and discontent, right? I'm anxious, I'm depressed, like I feel less than, I feel like I cannot measure up. So all these feelings were going on unbeknownst to me, a 14-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Right. And like you said, the sex stuff, right? You start objectifying women and exploring that, and then you just feel there's that really real sense of shame and self-hate that sets in, and you start to, it really compounds on that negative view of self. And so when drugs and alcohol was introduced, those negative emotions, because they're numbers, they were gone. Those negative emotions, for the most part, they leave, because you're getting an influx of all this dopamine, serotonin, epinephrine, and all these other chemicals that come in, and so you don't feel that emotional pain. So the brain's like, yes, this is the best way to exist, or the best way to survive, and that's kind of how I kind of come to look at it now.
Yeah, and if the listeners don't know this, Tyson's an advanced substance use disorder counselor. He's got his bachelor's degree in that, and
that's right. That's kind of part of our story.
And that's kind of where a lot of technical stuff comes from.
Yeah,
I'm there as well as myself. I've gone through all the classes, just haven't done the internship. Keep meaning to do that, but
dude, you've done 95% of the work.
I don't want to have the title.
Well, I feel like you did it just so you could see what it was all like. I'm gonna go get a degree. It's like going getting a, it's like any degree and just be like, just because I want to learn about it and just know how it is, because you've done all the coursework, and then
it's so fascinating though to learn about what goes on from a scientific level. Because I think it's important. I know there's a lot of guys that are going to hear this podcast, or they're in that spot that we were in, where you're waking up every day and the only thing on your mind is I got to use today. You're not. In the beginning of using, you're thinking, what I got to do this weekend, and then all of a sudden it gets down to what I got to do just to get well today, right? And you're in this rock between a rock and a hard place, and you think what we thought, and I've talked to hundreds of men over the last since we've been in recovery. This is how everyone goes through this, where they think they're bad, they're bad and they need to get good. That's the general sense of what guys are feeling.
They're broken, they're flawed and defective.
Yeah, that's how we felt. I know, dude. We've had these conversations, and it was so relieving to learn, at least in recovery, that I really had a brain disease.
Yeah.
And then learning how that worked and how addiction manifests itself in the brain. How it literally takes away our ability to choose.
Right.
It's just. It was relieving for me because then I felt, okay, I'm not a bad person who needs to get good. And what was explained to me, that I was genuinely sick, and I needed to get well. I had a disease that I can put in remission. And that was really cool to learn about, and then to go through the Sensei program. And learn
by
on
all accounts, it doesn't absolve us of our
choices.
Right. It doesn't absolve us of everything. We still need to absorb the consequences. Right. And face it. And face it and work through it. And that's the cool thing. The topic in the meeting today was really accepting where we're at, facing it, and together working through it.
Right.
And that's a powerful. That's a powerful concept.
Right.
Going back to I guess when we started using junior high school. So I remember it was just out when I had just graduated high school. Right. You were into the Oxy thing.
Yep.
Pretty significantly.
Yep.
And as far as getting them and dealing them and using them and all that, right? So, and I saw that going on. Heard it was kind of the same thing as heroin. I'm like, well, heroin is significantly cheaper. If it's kind of the same thing, I'll try this mostly. And we were living together in BYU approved housing. and I was 18 years old, had just graduated. And in high school, we're athletes. We played sports. Like I played football, and
I attempted.
In my senior year, I was 190 pound running back.
Yeah. And
so a few months later, try heroin for the first time, and I went from drinking and smoking weed every single day, because that's really had escalated to, it wasn't a weekend thing like it normally was in high school, or actually it became a daily thing towards the end of high school, but then was a lot more, because you need a lot more to get the same effect, and the brain was only getting so much, and then those uncomfortable feelings started to set back in, because the drugs and alcohol it gets to a point your brain adapts and it doesn't do that for you anymore. Right. And then when you're in that state of intoxication, you make even worse decisions, compounding the shame even more, and you feel like your problem pile up on you, and it becomes astonishingly difficult to solve. Right. And so for me, I needed more of a solution. Constantly looking for outside things to fill that black hole that was gaping open and growing. And so I started using heroin. I tried it, and I went from drinking and smoking weed every day to smoking heroin every single day. And it didn't take but a few weeks before the feelings of withdrawal set in. And this is the stuff I've learned further on into my recovery, is that from opiates specifically, your brain makes natural opiates. That's what puts us to sleep, regulates our pain sensors, a bunch of different things. Well, when you put powerful external opiates in, the factory in your brain makes
shuts down.
We're good. We can shut down. We're getting it all in from outside source, so we're good.
We don't need to make it anymore.
We don't need to make it, and we don't need to store it in the storehouse, right? So when you try to come off the drug, this applies for all drugs. When you try to come off of it, your brain has no excess reserve of the natural chemicals that you need, and so you go into a state of panic and shock and anxiety, all these physical, painful, really severe flu symptoms. I remember the withdrawal. I'm like, this is like flu, and I've had flu a couple times, but this is like that.
It's like an emotional flu.
Well, it's
because you're feeling the anxiety,
too,
like depression. Too. You can't sleep. You can't sleep. It's just it's utter hell. It's why it's so hard for guys to get out of it. and get off teen withdrawal.
Yep. And so, I mean, me and Press were off to the races. I'm like, Press, you gotta use this heroin stuff. It's way cheaper than what you're doing. And he's like, oh, you can get, and then so we started getting it from the same guy, and then we were off to the races. We were using together, became criminals, small time crooks, stealing stuff out of people's garages and stealing money from mom and dad and stealing things from stores and getting drugs for them and again compounding the shame and all this, but we did it from a place of we had to survive. I mean, I remember thinking, if these people knew how badly I needed these drugs, how sick I would get, if they knew, they would gladly give me all of their things, right?
Of course.
You like egocentric to the.
Well, and looking back, you just like when I look back, it's like, how the hell did I do that stuff? Like what was I thinking? And that's the reality,
dude.
We weren't thinking.
No.
From a scientific level, a biological level, really, our blood was actually retracting from our prefrontal cortex in our brain.
Right.
And
the prefrontal cortex is where we make our decisions. That's where you comprehend consequence. That's where you and it's not fully developed, and so especially you're at a disadvantage if you gain in your teens or 20s, because your brain, the prefrontal cortex, isn't fully developed until you're 29 in men, 27 in women. That's why they're smarter than us for sure. But be as it may, no, your prefrontal cortex is. I mean, could you think about? I mean, if you couldn't comprehend what your actions, the results that you would get, if you can't, then you literally only can think 5 seconds, 10 into the future. So the amygdala, that's its job is to keep you alive the next 5 seconds. And so when the prefrontal cortex shuts down, I like to look at it as the amygdala starts to grow and have more power in the brain. Therefore, where you made your decisions before in the prime, and it had more power and more say, if you will, in the brain, it has less and less functionality, less power, less votes, less ability to call the shots.
Right.
And so that's why you see drug addicts behaving so poorly, despite obvious negative, horrific consequences.
Because they're literally, it's kind of like the way I've explained to people, and the way I felt is, if you've ever been cliff jumping, you jump off a 20, 30-foot cliff into water, right? You jump off, your adrenaline's going, all of a sudden, boom, you're in water, you're maybe a little disoriented, and you might be 10 or 15 feet underwater, and because your adrenaline's going, you're completely out of breath, and you're swimming, you're looking up. The only thing that's on your mind is what?
I got a breather, I'm gonna die.
I need air.
Period.
That's it. You're not thinking, what's on the menu tonight? Are we eating hot dogs or burgers tonight?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not thinking about, the only thing that's on your mind is, I need air and I need it now. That's it. When you're withdrawing from opiates or drugs, especially something, that part, alcohol, once your body gets so accustomed to having these things and you're going through those withdrawals, that's exactly what's happening. Your brain is screaming so loud, like, I need this. It's like water torture. It's the only thing on your mind.
For sure.
And
that's when
like,
it
how can I get this?
Because you have people that have drug abuse issues, alcohol, drinking problems, and this isn't the disease aspect we're talking about. The brain there's a place, and every drug addict and alcoholic knows what I'm talking about. There's a point of no return, a time in our drinking or using career or history where that switch happens, where the amygdala has 51%, and the prefrontal cortex now has 49%, when it usually should have 80-90% of the say of what's going on. Over time of chronic use and over time, it has less and less ability to call the shots, and there's a point of no return. There's where the scales tip. And that's where I think once that happens, there's neural pathways carved in the brain that the brain associate. That's why we hear once an addict, always an addict, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. And that's why we say I'm so and so. I'm an alcoholic. I'm so and so. I'm a drug addict. And we still say that in meetings, years and years into of continuous sobriety and recovery.
Right.
Not for a label, but for ourselves to identify and understand that we have an illness that's in remission.
Mm-hmm.
All we have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. It's that's all we have today, and tomorrow, sobriety tomorrow isn't guaranteed. For any drug addict, alcoholic that's been there and has been at that disease.
That's such a huge piece that ties to step one directly.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's so many guys, and we'll talk about step one in our next podcast.
So going back to our story, I'm just out of high school. We're both using heroin on a daily basis, just really heading down. Because you were, I think, involved with harder drugs for longer than me, you were ready to change before I was. Ish.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a part of me that was scared, right? And I didn't want to really get sober. I wanted to maybe flirt with stop doing heroin, but I still wanted to party and I wanted to still use and kind of do what I wanted to do. I was just, really where we're at is, we lost a few friends, Dustin, I remember when that happened. There's a few other people that,
a lot of close calls.
Oh, for sure, man.
Friends of friends. You're hearing we're dying, and visibly we're getting a lot thinner.
Yeah.
And we were living in an unfinished basement on a mattress.
Yeah.
Blow up mattress. Waking up at 4 p.m.
Oh yeah.
Like, gotta go get drugs now.
Mm-hmm.
Eat Captain Crunch and do it all over again
with a spatula.
Off a plate. Captain Crunch because we're too poor to have regular
right?
Yeah, just bottom feeding, living on the bottom of society, right? And so, and just stuck in this mode of every day have to get high. And so, Press finally told mom and dad what was really going on.
Yeah.
They're like, we know you're doing something crazy. What is it? What are you guys using? And so Press told them. Cat was out of the bag at that point after years of lying and look over here and blaming and
we're justifying and
just really lying, right? And so
we didn't want mom to worry.
At this point,
we were working for dad at the time,
trying to work,
attempting falling asleep in the car,
trying to, and so we weren't able to. That's where it started getting bad because, at first when I started using, I remember setting a sales record on heroin when I first started using it, and I felt amazing. I was able to work 10 hours in a row.
That's a counterfeit. Of these drugs is in the very beginning, the first few times you use, your pleasure threshold. Just how it works,
right?
In your brain, it's you get that
because you have a lot of the backup natural stuff in storage, so you get a higher level effect. Whereas continuous use, less in the storage, and so instead of your pleasure spiking as you start to get depleted of those natural ones. It becomes less and less and less.
Then you got to use more just to feel normal.
Just to feel relative, and you're not at that point. You're inverted, and you're not even getting to a state of normalcy. You're in the state of
using just to not get sick.
Insanity, literal insanity, which is step one. Admitting to ourselves that we are powerless over drugs and alcohol, that our lives have become unmanageable. So. And step two is came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So we have to have the understanding that we are at the place of we're insane.
Right.
That's the very definition of insanity, is doing the same things over and over again, expecting a different result. Yeah, no matter kind of what it applies to, but this was directly applicable. And so helping it to see. For me in recovery, understanding, okay, I'm not flawed and defective, I'm not broken. I have acquired a neurological brain disease. My ability to choose has been stifled or taken away. All my positive chemicals and emotions in my brain have been zapped, right? So in this process of us using bottom feeding every day, you want to change. So we go to a medical detox, right? I thought I was going to be there for a couple days. We go there, get through. There's like, it's like 3 days. You'll be through the withdrawals. So I thought if I was just done with the withdrawals, I would be good to go, and then maybe I would kind of just use it every now and then, and so
it's so hard to just envision that we're not going to use again. It's like,
it's
like, we just need to tone it down a bit, like on a subconscious level.
Because
we don't want to get like that again,
right?
we got to be more careful.
Right, but
or
maybe you understand, right? For years, we were putting a chemical every day. We were using something, even way before hard drugs. It was something every day to feel different, to feel normal, right? So you went to a great facility. It's no longer in existence, called the Ark of Little Cottonwood. Preston went there, and I went to another facility that also isn't around today.
Journey, right?
Yeah, Journey Willow Creek. And I went there, and I remember waking up from the detox meds, and
after you've been there for like 2
and
days.
I was at that place where I'm just coming off of like all the benzos,
right?
To where like I was, and I'm off the heroin, so I'm not sleeping. I think I came out like 2 a.m. Everyone's sleeping, and I woke up and I felt like wide awake, and I felt like normal, right? Because I'm coming off benzos. I didn't know when I come off of the rest of the detox meds, I'm still gonna have a very an uncomfortable withdrawal. You might be done.
And I'm pretty sure we lied in detox and told them we're on a lot more drugs than we were taking, just so we get more drugs
for sure.
We didn't really want to detox.
Because why not? If you're a drug addict, you're gonna try to get as many drugs as you can.
How sick were we, dude? Yeah. Did you do that? I did.
Oh, absolutely.
Did you really?
Absolutely.
Like how much heroin are you taking? We're doing like a half
gram.
We're doing like 2 grams. That would kill a horse. But we're telling you.
Yeah. I mean, I just remember saying like, I need more Ativan. And I'm like drooling, like I need more Ativan. I'm going out of my skin.
And I snuck a whole carton of cigarettes in there. Do you remember?
Yeah, didn't they confiscate them?
No.
I don't remember that.
I can't. I don't remember much of detox. I just remember.
I remember waking up.
I remember smoking in my room and then like hiding it. No, I smoked in the bathroom like I did at Mom and Dad's house.
I'll never know.
Blowing it in the vent.
Oh yeah, dude.
It's crazy, dude.
Just bananas. So like I wake up in treatment. I wake up in treatment and not knowing, like I didn't know how I didn't really remember how I got there. And I remember, and so I'd hung out, tried to break into the med room, like it's locked up pretty good. You
did really?
I mean, I jiggled the handle maybe, and it's like, oh, this looks like where they keep the drugs. No, but no one was awake. I was walking around. I was looking for people. I didn't want to go in bedrooms, but like I was looking around. But anyway, I found the TV and I sat down and started watching. Anyway, at 6 a.m., some staff comes in and he's like, "Oh yeah, you're the guys. Your brother's at the Ark of Little Cottonwood." I'm like, what's that you said? The Ark of Little Cottonwood. It's like, mental note there. You're right, because I had formulated a plan. Like I'm gonna figure out where you were. I'm gonna leave. We're not doing this. We've been tricked. We've been tricked into rehab. And
pause on that. So my perception, because there's a funny story here, but I was a little bit more ready to get sober than you were at this point. Looking back, all the way sober wasn't my intention, but I was done waking up like throwing up every morning.
Yeah,
I wanted to do that. But I didn't really want to be in treatment.
Right.
I just wanted to detox and thought I was good, but I knew you, like in my mind back then, I knew you probably needed treatment. I don't think I did. Right? There's a justifying, thinking errors. I was
the worst drug addict for sure.
Yeah,
I was a little crazier
for sure. I mean, I was still an addict though, for sure though. Dude, I was doing oxys for 2 years before we did H. And, I mean, that's just, I was for sure. But where I was at, what I was going to say was, so in detox, right? Dad came and he talked to me. He says, "Hey, Press, the only way that we're gonna get Tyson to go to rehab is that you go to rehab."
This is a shame double down.
So he packed my my guilt bags for me. And sent me on a guilt rehab vacation, a guilt trip, dude.
Pack your bags on the guilt trip.
That's what he did, dude. And we've laughed about this since, you know. But
dude, could you imagine?
But I'm sitting.
Could you imagine what Dad and Mom were going through, right? Like,
oh yeah,
seeing your kids just completely taken by completely not themselves, not the little kids you raised, doing things that you never thought of, you know, like that.
Yeah, both our parents never used anything, you know. Right. Neither of them have ever drank, you know. And they both very active in the church since, you know, Mom grew up in it. Dad got converted in junior high, I think.
Yeah, but good people made good with good values, you know.
Yeah.
I mean.
And that's why we lied to him. Was we didn't want to hurt him. You know, we lied to him a lot.
Yeah, we didn't want to let him down.
You know, for sure. And I think that added to the shame too. Like, oh, if they knew what we were doing, you know. Of course, it's crazy.
Press goes to rehab. I break out of rehab.
He comes to my rehab.
I try to go and rescue him.
Break me out of rehab.
From his rehab. And anyways, I went back up at my drug dealer's house. Weird. I was convinced. Well, I really wasn't welcome anywhere else. The drug dealer was the only one I had any reasonable credit with, you know. So it was really the only place that I had to go. And then ended up at another friend's couch and using. And so a few weeks later, I'm in jail. And during that month, from the last time I saw you at detox, I would use more in that month than I ever had. You know, I felt. I mean, that's when there's a tipping when people just rip forward to rock bottom. You know, when all cares given are gone, and it was just on and just. I mean, it was the darkest time in it where I used so much, and I wasn't gonna stop. Unless I was stopped, and so was lucky enough to have a cop find myself underneath a cop with his knee on my you know, on the back of my head, you know, trying to run, trying to steal stuff for drugs, and down on a Reams parking lot, literal rock bottom. And so I remember going to jail. I remember thinking, you know, this withdrawals, this is gonna suck, you know. But it didn't really hit me till like the 24 hours later, the next day, and the next 5 days. I don't know how. I mean, you don't sleep. You're up 24 hours. You know, because all the opium is drained in your brain. You have just chronic severe flu symptoms, the you know, projectile vomit, you know, the bile, I mean, just as horrific the stuff that we go through, and convinced I'm never going to use heroin again, for sure. Never going to do it again. And in that place, right, of being in that physical pain and torture was coupled with, like you were saying, the emotional pain. Yeah. I remember, like, because when you're using, you're in a state of dream. You don't care about anything. You know, you don't feel real good emotion. You don't feel negative emotions. Everything's kind of numbed out, and so. But when, you know, I was coming off all the drugs, I started. It was like I woke up from like a dream into a nightmare. My nightmare was my life circumstance. Right? And like, I'm in this state of, I'm a 120 pound addict in jail on serious. I don't know when I'm ever getting out of jail. I'm in intense pain. so much pain, you know, I have to just like lay down, you know, but like all the things came into my mind, that all the things I had done, how bad I had hurt mom and dad, our family, and the decisions that I had made, the people I had hurt, you know,
regrets,
all of this serious pain. And I can understand why people would get to the place where they want to take their life, because more than anything, I wanted to die and I wanted to kill myself. And I tried, you know, to figure out how to do so. You know, I mean, if I jump off of the top of this thing just right, I might break my neck. But if I don't break my neck and then I have a broken neck and then I'm gonna withdraw, that, you know. So I'm like, I could hang myself, but you know, they kind of think of that and they make all the things retractable, and you can see everything. Like, I can't do that. I remember just wishing I wish I had a gun so bad, just with one bullet, just so bad, just fantasizing about that, you know, really, really wanting to die, because I believe the ultimate lie that so many people, before they keep going down that path and they take their own lives, or they use so much they don't wake up, because they can't feel anything, you know. They can't feel the pain it will cause their family. They can't feel the pain, the intense emotional pain, and this doesn't register, you know. It's beyond selfishness. They're in a place of survival. And so I mean, I just remember wishing I could die so badly. And I remember very clearly having a feeling of, this is what karma means. I'm like, this is what goes around comes around means. This is what it means, because I felt like I was in a genuine state of hell. I was. And I'm quite certain I'll never feel that much pain ever again. You know, as long as I stay sober, I for sure don't have to. Right. But with modern medicine and different things, pain people can get in, and like, dude, it was around the clock, you know, 5, 7 days, 8 days in a row of excruciating, unrelenting physical and emotional torture, right, that you couldn't get out of. And one of the worst parts about it, being malnourished, right, in jail they just feed you a little bit. You can't get full enough ever. So when the meals comes, because you're staying up all day, night and day, burning these calories, you know, but you're malnourished. So the food finally, I was never a breakfast person until I went to jail.
Really?
Yeah, because you have dinner at 4 o'clock, and then you just get to sit there and watch that clock move super slowly all the way until 6:30 a.m. and the breakfast gets there. And I was so excited to eat with that mush or whatever, you know, that it wasn't that bad, but I just gobbled it. And then it just made me hungrier. It was like you're starving and you can just have appetizer, or just a little bit of appetizer, and that's it. That's how it felt. And that's how I felt all night, all day. It was a chronic, unrelenting, the genuine hunger never left me for 30 days. I've never, like, you don't think about that. Like in real life, like we were blessed to be in America. I'm sure other places in the country, people would go through this, or in the world. But dude, like to honestly think, you know, I mean, think about it. Anytime you want to eat, you eat, you're full, you're good. You get hungry again, you eat, you're full, you're good. Most of the time you eat too much, you feel sick, whatever, you're full, you roll away. Right. But I never was able to eat enough to get full, ever. You know, and it was this constant pain. So, and Jess is like, that's why you have issues with these cookies. And I'm like, no, it's because I think I'm a drug addict too, you know. But no, so that was my rock bottom, right? That was painting a picture of that hell, which helps me to do so, and hopefully you guys can relate to that pain and being in that place. But and like you were saying before, Press, we couldn't imagine our lives without drugs and alcohol, right? Like for years using something to fill that hole, right. Had no idea what that looked like, and so that was with living a life without drugs and alcohol was terrifying. Right. But living a life with drugs and alcohol was terrifying. right? But it was comfortable, it's familiar. In our prefrontal cortex, once you get clean for a little bit, it starts to come back online. Well, maybe if you just use a little better on the weekends, or maybe if you just got the right girl or made enough money, or then you could go back to using, right? What, like some logical rationale, then I'll be happy. Yeah, if I just had $1 million. But it's that's truly what, like, a rock and a hard place. That's what it means, is not being able to envision your life with drugs or without. And I had a little bit more research to do, a little bit more rock bottom, pulling out and trying to dig some more, because I got out and a few weeks later I'm like, oh, I can just try it once. I tried it once, and luckily, and it started kind of taking me over again. And luckily I had the court saying, hey, you got to go to treatment, or you're going to go serve some time in jail, a lot of time in jail, or we're going to suspend your treatment upon successful completion of treatment. And so that's when I went into the ARC, when you were 90 days or so in, about ready to leave. And for sure, had you not gone into treatment and paved that way and shown me that a different life was possible, I don't know where I would be, man. I don't know. It's cool how God put us down here on earth together in the same family, and but like went down this journey, but because I mean, I don't know if I would ever found recovery, but I remember being in jail, reading a letter from you that wasn't from you. Like, it wasn't from
the guy you know.
Yeah, it was a real, like, Ty, I'm finding a spiritual solution to my problem, and there's a way out. Was kind of what I took away from it. Like, there's another option. So not just rock in a hard place. It was like, no, look up and grab a hold of his hand and allow it to pull you up. And for me, that's what the steps are today, and that's what this higher power stuff is.
Which kind of leads me to a question I have. I thought to ask you on this podcast. But I'll preface with this. Before you went into the ARC, right? I think it was that family group when you were there with mom and dad.
Yeah.
And you came up and you were gonna like check in the next day, or it was like soon.
Okay.
And you're like, dude, so
yeah.
How do I get through this? Like, you were trying to control. Like, so
I finally got you alone. I remember. I was like, hey, Preston, tell me everything I gotta do to get through this rehab thing as soon as possible.
Yeah. I remember this conversation.
Exactly that.
Because I had a conversation with one of our clients yesterday who was saying this pretty much the same thing. He wanted to leave, and he was in that state of mind that you were in, the same state of mind that I was in when I first checked in. Is we're trying to manipulate, we're trying to control the situation, and there's a principle I learned in recovery, and that's what I told you that night, and you remember. And we've talked about this before, but I told you, you just gotta surrender, man. You just gotta surrender.
Just surrender.
And I remember the look on your face when I said that.
Do you really?
Dude, I really do.
I remember being, I don't remember what I looked like because I can't see my face.
You're just like,
but I remember being baffled.
Like what?
I remember legitimate state of baffledness. I was like, it was foreign language. Like, again, recovery is a foreign language.
And that's a tool I learned. And so my question to you is, there's a lot of tools that we learn in early recovery, right? What's the tool that you learned in early recovery that you may still use now? Like, tools wear out after a while, we gain new tools at work. But maybe what's one of those tools in early recovery that you used that helped you just get to that next day of sobriety, or staying in treatment one more day? So many, right? But like, thing that comes to mind is honesty, and like the how, right? Like, what you're asking is like, well, how do we recover, right? What are and honesty, open-mindedness, willingness. Expand on that though, dude, because I believe you had to shave your face in treatment. Half of it. Talk about that. There was a ton of things that happened in treatment, right? That were, I had so many profound.
I feel super blessed and super privileged because I feel like I was blessed. We had there was a really great staff there, dude. Like I was entitled, 19-year-old kid that, it seemed like every other group was on me, just getting reamed out from all the other group members from all my character weaknesses and defects.
Mm-hmm.
And this is before I even came to the ranch,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean a ton of and I really learned to cement my ego and to see things from other people's perspective,
Mm-hmm.
So like for me, things changed so dramatically for me when I finally applied, when I finally prayed, we've grown up in a religious family. You pray all the time. You pray, but you pray with your head. You don't pray with your heart. But being in that place, that rock in a hard place, understanding I'm not going to be able to get out of this. And there has to be a power greater than myself to do for me what I for sure cannot do for myself. And I've come to terms with that. And dude, that's when I prayed. I remember up at the loft in the ark, that little house, that little area, the bedrooms, and just bawling to myself at night, praying and this was the first time I prayed in my whole life.
How far into treatment at this point were you?
This was like right after my step one that I did.
So like your second.
It's like 2 weeks. 2 weeks in there. Yeah, it was right around 2 weeks, and
which is interesting with my story. Right around 2 weeks is when it's similar. We'll talk about that.
The 2 weeks seems to be a real consistent, real turning curve if people take some suggestions, and that's the thing. Like and that's why treatment was so effective for me, was because it made me aware of my illness, right? And because you can't change something you can't see.
Right.
It made me. Everyone's shining a light on all this stuff in my life that I had written off or thought about different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I had realized the way I was doing life was utterly failing me.
Right.
Like my way of perceiving myself and others in the world and my decisions, everything was wrong. It wasn't serving me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember just praying that night, really crying myself to sleep, pouring my heart out to whatever was out there. Up to this point, I had convinced myself, God, there was no God. The church wasn't true. No church was true. Religion is a construct created by people to feel better so they can have a false sense of security, So I legitimately didn't believe in God, and until it was like, well, you start to consider, well, then who made all this? Who made all the beauty around in the mountain? Who puts the earth, what power places the earth so close enough to the sun it doesn't burn, and far enough away to where it doesn't freeze over, right? And there's day and night, and where our kids created, and like how this growth process, and it's like there's got to be something, and
a higher power.
And it was also a spiritual based program, like the ranch was, and so the people that I saw that were giving me feedback, I could feel were like from a place of love. Like it hurt, the stuff they were saying, but like these are people I've got relationships with, and I believe they kind of cared. And everyone who had a sense of kind of what I wanted had a twinkle in their eye, and they all talked about a higher power in some way or another. So I'm like, there's got to be, if I'm in a room and there was 12 people, and I remember thinking, I'm like, I'm the only one not really believing in God, and there's 12 people. I remember counting 12. There's 12 people that think differently. Maybe I'm the one that's wrong, and that was a little bit of relief, and I'm so glad I was wrong about God and the church, and like everyone, I was wrong about everything. I was so glad.
Well, we've talked about this before, and I think the group called you out, and they told you, stop thinking the way you're thinking. The way you're thinking is wrong, and then you said something. So everything I ever thought about is wrong, or the way I think, and they're all like resounding yes, and that's when you're like, okay, maybe.
Yeah. Well, that was here at the ranch.
Oh, that was the ranch.
That was my second, but yeah, like same principle, same moment in time, because I had relapsed and gotten back into my disease, and so I'm at that place. And I after my first experience, I was sober for 1.5 years,
Right.
and thought I could drink again.
After the arc, for 1.5 years.
Been sober 1.5 years. I could drink again.
And I was living in Nevada. I get a call. Your brother's using heroin again. I got on a flight. Your codependent brother followed you around until you checked into the ranch.
Yeah. And so but it was evolutionary. That relapse taught me a ton. I learned so much from it coming back to the ranch, and because I had no idea what happened. I just had known I was at a place of disease. I'm having all these. I'm going to sell my car and get a cheaper car and use the difference to buy drugs. That was like my next plan of action for life.
Right. That's how far ahead.
And I'm like, okay.
I'm sure
I remember
not that far ahead.
Yeah. I'm like, I remember being happy and when I was sober, but I don't know how to get there. I don't know if I'm worthy of it and all this and that. But yeah, I need help. I can't do this on my own. And that's why I came to the ranch. And I had a lot of treatment. I thought I knew everything. In fact, I remember like one of my first or second days saying to one of the brothers, I think I'm on step 4 or 5. Or maybe even like 6 or 7. But I'm like, I've done those. And he's like, dude, I promise you, you're on step 1. He's like, no, you're not. And I'm like, okay. You don't know. You don't know who I am. You don't know who I am. How much. And dude, so yeah, my step 1 here, I got my ego cracked in half, and it was one of the most pivotal turning points of my life. But and that's where I eventually came to, and that was the massive light bulb moment in that group, which was, I'm like, okay, I remember saying, so you guys are all telling me that everything I know about recovery in life, I just throw out the window, right? Everybody, like, whether it was being, yes, well, not everybody, but 6 or 7, 8, therapists, like, yes, you're getting it. And I'm like, and then the next thing was like, what have you got to lose? Okay, I didn't have anything to lose, Like, what have you got to lose? And it made things so simple for me, because, like, you can start over. It's like start over, with a blank page, and then that principle of surrender set back in, and I turned off my head and I opened up my heart, and I started.
One of the greatest journeys to go from is from here to here, head to your heart, man.
So that step 1 was an enormously powerful experience, to say the least. And then finally submitting, in conceding to my innermost self that I can't do it on my own, and that my best thinking got me where I was at. And so to start over and throw everything out. And so I finally opened up and really, and made a every day I remember just loving being here, dude, like, and just loving the brothers, loving the staff, loving everything, learning so much every day. I'm like, man, I don't think 60 days is gonna be enough, and it's like, dude, the learning doesn't stop, it continues.
It's funny, the first week you want to leave, the last week you're scared to leave.
Well, I wasn't scared to leave. I wasn't scared. I didn't want to.
Right.
It was more. It was more like, I just love it here. I'm comfortable here. But I was so inspired with what the ranch is and what it does, and I had just made a commitment that I wanted to ensure that places like the ranch continued, and I didn't know what I was going to do with my life, but that point I was like, I want to do everything that I can do, get as educated as I can, learn all the skills and tools that I can, so that I can be in a position to help others experience what I've been able to experience and what I know the experience can look like and be, because I'd been to a bunch of other treatment programs, I'd worked at others, and the ranch, it just has something something special about it. And it's a lot of different things. But so went to school, you know, in psychology, got my degree in psychology, and then counseling, and then you know, learned about business and entrepreneurship, and then, you know, applied all those things together, like, you know, with working with you and Dad, and yeah, and here we are. You know, here we are today, and right, like Press and I, we live just a few houses from each other. We both have little beautiful children.
Yeah, I got 2 and 1 on the way, and you've got 3, and hoping for another one.
2. We have amazing wives.
Oh yeah.
You know, just so, I mean, we're so enormously blessed today. You know, and to be sit here doing this, furthering the work of the ranch, letting people know about the brotherhood and the impact that it has had in our lives, and in so many other people's lives. Hopefully we can use this platform and other brothers' experience, strength, and hope to really give everyone who listens to this that spiritual upliftment one day at a time to get through. And no matter what you're going through, the last thing I'll say is that I firmly believe that everything that we go through is tailor-made for us and helps us to become who we are meant to become. And so hang on. The sun always comes out. There's so much to look forward to in life. So many beautiful moments, and amazing things ahead. And we look forward to seeing you as we trudge this road of happy destiny.
Thanks, guys.